Good afternoon again. Once again, thank you for your patience. Mr. Chernoff, you may call your next witness.
Defense calls Dr. Alan Metzger.
Sir, please stand in the witness box. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please be seated. Please state your name for the record. Spell your first and last names.
Alan Metzger, A-L-L-A-N-M-E-T-Z-G-E-R.
Dr. Metzger, good afternoon, sir. Let me provide you with some instructions which I give to every witness in every case. The first, please sit back and relax. The second, please speak loudly so we can hear you. The third, if you are called upon to provide a yes or no answer, answer that way rather than which can be confusing. And lastly, please wait until you hear an entire question before you answer it, even though you think you may know what the question calls for. Is that acceptable?
Yes, thank you.
This will be direct examination. Mr. Chernoff.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Dr. Metzger, thank you for coming.
Yes.
First, tell us what your occupation is.
I am a physician, a general internist, and rheumatologist.
And where is your principal office?
Principal office is near Cedars, West Los Angeles.
And how long have you been situated in that office?
I've been in practice since 1974, in this office since 1981.
At some point during your time as a doctor, did you have occasion to meet Michael Jackson?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell us when that was?
Exactly when I met Michael was probably 15 to 20 years ago. I'm not absolutely sure of the first time I saw him.
Was it prior to 2000?
Prior to 2000?
Yes.
Definitely.
Prior to 1995?
Definitely.
When you, and at some point during that period of time, Dr. Metzger, did you start treating Michael Jackson for
Yes.
various things?
Yes.
How would you describe your relationship with him as the years progressed?
It began professionally, and over the years we had become close over the birth of his children, and in many ways I was a confidant and a friend for many years, mostly one of his primary physicians in Los Angeles.
Okay. You say mostly one of his primary. Were you aware of other physicians?
Off and on there may have been other physicians who he would call on as specialists for either dermatology or other issues, but I understood me to be the main internal medicine physician.
The specialists that he would call in, do you know who these specialists were? Were they at your recommendation?
I'll sustain the objection 350 and 352.
Do you know Dr. Arnold Klein?
Yes, I do.
How long have you known him?
Sustain.
Dr. Metzger, I'm going to limit. I understand you have known Michael Jackson, for quite some time, but I'm going to limit the questions I have for you for recent times, in 2009, prior to his death. Do you recall receiving a phone call from Michael Jackson in February 2009?
Yes.
Okay. Now, prior to that time, when was the last time you had spoken to Michael Jackson?
Approximately a year earlier. I believe he called me in early 2008.
Would that be July 2008?
I'd have to refer to my records.
You have your medical records with you?
Yes, I do.
Would you please refer to them? Now, Dr. Metzger, are you holding the entirety of the medical records that you have on Michael Jackson?
I am bringing my most recent records from 2002.
All right. And how many pages do your records
5
consist
pages.
of? All right. Okay. So when did you speak to Michael Jackson in 2008?
June 12, 2008.
June. All right. And what was the conversation about? This
Overruled.
The conversation was about his health, sleep issues, nutrition, and some skin care issues. I believe at that time he was primarily living in Las Vegas.
Prior to June 2008, when was the last time that you spoke to Michael Jackson?
Overruled.
Many years earlier.
Can you estimate for us the year?
Again, referring to my records, June 23rd of 2003, he came into the office.
All right, and this is the Los Angeles office.
Yes, he came to the Los Angeles office.
So 5 years later, Michael Jackson called you,
Yes,
and this was in June of 2008.
correct.
And one of the complaints that he had, or one of the things he wanted to talk to you about, was sleep issues.
Let me refer to my records. He had told me that he was taking Xanax for sleep. We had also seen him for a preoperative examination for some forms of therapy.
All right. The conversation with Michael Jackson was recorded in your medical records. Is that
Yes.
correct? Is this just a typed up note?
Yes, I dictate my notes generally after I see the patient in the office, after a phone call, or after a house call.
When was the next time you heard from Michael Jackson?
Well, it was 203, and then the next time was 208.
All right. And in June 2008, what was the conversation about then?
Overruled. You may answer.
General health issues. He was under stress and taking Tylenol PM, which is Benadryl and Tylenol for sleep. I asked him when he was next coming to Los Angeles. He wasn't sure. And we talked about some basic skin care and his back strain.
Is that all you talked about?
I believe that was it.
You didn't tell him that you would look forward to seeing him when he arrived in Los Angeles?
I always socially and medically want him to know I'm available for him. I probably said, I'm looking forward to seeing you.
Did you happen to mention any other doctor to him during that discussion?
I asked him to come and see me and Dr. Klein because we had talked about skin issues. Dr. Klein was his dermatologist.
When did you next hear from Michael Jackson?
And the witness is reviewing his written materials.
February 26th of 2009.
All right. And this was a phone call or was an office visit?
Phone call.
Were you aware at that time that Michael Jackson was back in Los Angeles?
I believe he was here rehearsing at that time. I'm not sure when the phone call was made exactly what his location was.
How were you aware that he was rehearsing?
He'd mentioned it, and I'd seen it in the press.
Now, prior to the phone call that you received in February 2009, had you been contacted by either Michael Jackson or anybody in his household or anybody that worked for him?
Objection to relevance 352.
Overruled. May answer, please.
Thank you. I'm not sure. I may have had a rare phone call with somebody in his environs. I had been in touch often with his nanny, who would help with the children.
This
May I have a moment, please? Apparently the mic isn't working right. Deputy Jones wants to just fix the amplifier. One moment. Thank you, Deputy Jones.
This
Sorry.
this nanny that you're referring to, is this Grace Rwamba?
Yes.
And she was also his personal assistant at that time?
Off and on, she functioned as a personal assistant and took care of the children.
You recall her contacting you at some point in 2009?
Objection to relevance.
Overruled. You may answer yes or no.
I had been in touch with her infrequently in 2008, 2009, and probably before then, generally over the children's issues.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said last.
I may have been in touch with her frequently, most of the time over social issues. How are the children doing? I really like to keep tabs on how they were doing.
When was the next time you personally spoke with Michael Jackson?
After February 26th, 09.
And what date was that?
The
That
witness
was-
is reviewing his materials.
I visited him at his home at his request, April 18th, 2009 in Beverly Hills.
How did you wind up visiting his home? How did you know to go visit his home?
Michael called and asked me to come over to discuss several things.
Could you tell us at what time of the day or night or evening that you went to see Michael Jackson?
It was definitely day. I think it was early afternoon. April 18th, we'd have to check if it was a weekend. I don't recall.
It might have been a Saturday.
I think it was a weekend. I think it was a Saturday or Sunday.
Might it have been Easter weekend?
I don't remember.
All right. Was it unusual for you to visit Michael Jackson's house?
Not unusual, but infrequent.
Infrequent. Did he explain to you at any point when he called you why he wanted you to come to his house?
Basically said, I want to talk to you about some health issues, and he's known that I've been checking up on the kids and knew that I really wanted to see the kids.
All right. What was, when you came to the house, who was there?
The three children, Michael, some security guards that I don't recall names of at the moment. Grace was not there. I don't know who else was in the home.
At the time that Michael Jackson spoke to you, did he tell you that he was seeing any other doctors?
No.
And did he explain to you after the conversation that you had with him, was it a private conversation or were these other individuals around when you had this talk?
It started with Michael, myself, and the children. Then the children went outside, and Michael and I had privacy in the living room.
All right. You sat in the living room with Michael Jackson
Yes,
in private,
yes.
and you talked to him about medical issues.
Mostly medical issues and the stress he was under with all the rehearsal schedule.
How long was this conversation?
I think I was there for an hour, hour and a half. Totally, I would say that conversation, 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
How would you characterize his state of mind at that time?
Lucid.
Well, Doctor, let me stop you for a second. You said lucid.
Yes.
That's not traditionally a state of mind question. Have you observed him not to be lucid in the past?
Relevance.
Well, I think counsel may be testifying too, so the objection is sustained. We asked the question.
Other than physical medical conditions, how was his mental outlook? Did he seem worried? Did he seem stressed?
He was excited. He was talking to me about some creative things that he was thinking about. He spoke to me about his excitement and fear about the tour.
What was his fear?
I think his fear was that this was a big obligation, and he didn't want to not do a good job with 50 shows. And he realized it was a huge ordeal to do that.
Did he believe that he was up to the task?
I think he believed he was up to the task, but also fearful about his nutritional state and staying healthy.
All right. What did he talk to you about with regard to those issues?
He talked about his nutritional state and some of the things that I had worked with him years ago. He also had various health people and health food chefs working with him over the years. We talked about hydration and some of the things he had to do before performing and after performing. We didn't talk about injuries. I think he was doing very well with his chronic back issues, was mostly his nutrition and hydration.
These conversations that you had with him, are they reflected in your medical records?
Yes,
Under what type of language? General health issues?
yes. Medical issues we discussed included his physical and emotional strain due to upcoming rehearsal concert schedule, his nutritional and hydration state of health, and the stress related to his profound sleep disorder.
At what point did Michael Jackson bring to your attention that he had a sleep disorder?
Many years ago,
When did that occur?
I would say over 15 or 20 years, I know that sleep was an issue, particularly after performing. He could not come down.
When you have known him, you said for 15 years, or you had at least 15 years, maybe longer.
At least 15 or 20 years.
This was a problem that he experienced on tours or on a regular basis?
I was familiar with it on tours when I was with him, and I treated some sleep issues over the years infrequently.
Now, which tours are you referring to?
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained, 350, 352.
Did you ever travel with Michael Jackson?
Objection relevance.
Overruled. You may answer it.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Were you ever around him during these tours?
Objection relevance.
Sustained, 350, 352.
As you can, back to the meeting or the conversation you had with him on April 18th. Did he mention to you any specific medicine that he hoped to obtain for these sleep issues?
He asked me about intravenous sleep medicine.
Did he happen to mention the name of this medicine?
I think he used the word juice. I don't think I heard the word of a specific medication.
And when he said intravenous sleep medication, what did you think? What was your opinion of what he meant?
I'm not sure. It could have been IV Valium. It could have been an anesthetic drug. I'm not sure what he was asking.
He merely asked you for intravenous sleep medication?
He did not believe any oral medicine would be helpful.
Did he tell you that he had tried oral medicine?
Yes.
And what did he say the success of that was?
I don't recall him naming medicines, but I do clearly remember, and from personal experience, many medicines just did not work.
Okay. From personal experience, what medicines did not work?
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I had personally tried him on Tylenol PM in the past. We had tried Xanax to help his anxiety and help him go to sleep. And on that visit, I tried other medication to help him.
Which, you're talking about the April 18th visit?
Yes.
What medication did you try?
I gave him Klonopin to be used or Trazodone to be used, not together.
Was there any further discussion of the type of IV medication that Michael Jackson was interested in or looking for?
I don't recall, but he did mention he wanted some form of an anesthetic.
Well, Dr. Metzger, you didn't ask him at that point what type of anesthetic or what type of IV medication?
I don't recall asking him specifically about a given medication.
Are you familiar with the drug propofol?
I am now.
On April 18, 2009, were you familiar with that drug?
I probably had heard about it from patients having outpatient procedure or surgery. So I was aware of the medication, but not about all the subtleties of the medication.
During your treatment of Michael Jackson through the years, you have referred him to outpatient clinics, haven't you?
I had referred him or worked with plastic surgeons and dermatologists.
You have also referred him to anesthesiology clinics?
I don't recall a specific anesthesiology clinic.
Do you know a Dr. Randy Rosen?
Yes, I do know Randy Rosen.
Who is Dr. Randy Rosen?
Randy Rosen is a pain management physician, and Randy and I had worked over the years with Michael in terms of pain management.
What kind of pain was Michael Jackson in that needed to be managed?
Most of the time it was a chronic back strain, mostly from overwork, practicing, performing. On a couple of occasions he had injuries.
And what kind of, and Dr. Randy Rosen, what was his primary specialty?
Maybe he is an anesthesiologist by training. I work with him specifically for pain management.
Is he involved with the Spalding Clinic in Beverly Hills?
Now I think he is. I did work with him at the Spalding Clinic.
And what is the Spalding Clinic?
It's a group of several physicians who, to my knowledge, do outpatient pain procedures in their suite.
What kind of medications were provided to Michael Jackson for this pain?
I don't
Objection,
know.
relevance, Your Honor.
The objection sustained. The partial answer stricken. Disregard.
Prior to your meeting with Michael Jackson on April 18th, actually during your meeting with Michael Jackson on April 18th, did he tell you that he was visiting Dr. Arnold Klein?
Visiting Arnold Klein
Yes.
during being in Los Angeles at that time,
During that period of time, he was in Los Angeles?
I presumed that he would see Arnold Klein frequently for dermatologic treatment.
You presume that? Why?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled. You may answer.
Most of the time, Michael was having mild dermatologic procedures, mild cosmetic issues, and treatment of his chronic vitiligo and other skin issues with Dr. Klein.
Were you familiar with the treatments that Dr. Klein was providing Michael Jackson in April of 2009?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained. 350. 352.
In your conversation with Michael Jackson on the 18th, was there any mention by Michael Jackson of taking you to London?
No.
Did he ever mention the need for having a doctor in London for his?
Yes. Yes, he did.
Did he happen to tell you why he thought he needed a doctor?
He was concerned about hydration, he was concerned about sleep, and he was concerned about injuries.
And did he ask for a referral from you for that?
I don't believe he did. I do not know any practicing physicians in London.
Well, he told you he wanted a doctor. He told you he had sleep difficulties. He told you he wanted IV medication. You didn't have any advice for him at that point other than to prescribe him Klonopin and Trazodone?
I couldn't give him any other advice.
In the years prior, when Michael Jackson was unable to sleep, do you know how he treated during the concert? You said during concert, after concerts. Do you know how he treated that problem?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained. 350 and 352.
I take it you did not provide him IV medication?
Definitely not.
All right. And
It's a double negative.
I did not provide any intravenous medication for Michael Jackson.
Thank you.
ever?
I would say ever.
Your testimony today is that in 15 years you have never provided Michael Jackson intravenous medication of any sort.
That is my testimony.
You left after the meeting. You left. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you ever have occasion to speak to Michael Jackson again?
I don't think so. I gave him instructions about the medicine I prescribed and asked him to get back to me in terms of which medication was helpful.
And you say you don't think so. Is it possible that you spoke to some of his employees or some of his security staff after that time?
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained. 350 and 352.
So from April 18th till the time of his death, you did not speak to Michael Jackson? Is that what you're
I did not speak with Michael Jackson.
All right. Since his death, have you had occasion to speak to Dr. Arnold Klein about this particular case or about Michael Jackson?
Objection
Yes.
relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Motion to strike.
The partial answer stricken. Disregard.
All right. Do you have anything else? Could you, Dr. Metzger, let me see if we can narrow you down to the time period that you spoke to Michael Jackson on April 18th. Could you give us sort of the hours that you would have spoken to him?
In person, when I was visiting him,
Yes, please.
my note reflects about an hour and a half.
No, I'm talking about the time. Was it was it 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock?
I think it was an afternoon, and I believe it was a weekend. I can't recall any more than that.
It was early afternoon, late afternoon?
I would say early or middle afternoon. I don't think it was morning. I don't think it was late afternoon.
During the 15 years that you treated Michael Jackson, you kept medical records, is that right?
Yes, I have.
And you do have those medical records.
I have 5 pages of medical records since 2002.
After Michael Jackson's death, you were asked to provide those medical records to the coroner?
I provided them to an attorney, and I was never asked to provide anything else.
And the records that you provided to your attorney were the 5 pages that you have in front of you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chernoff. Cross-examination by the people. Mr. Walgren.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Dr. Metzger, on April 18, 2009, when Michael Jackson inquired about intravenous sleep medication, you explained to him that that was dangerous, life-threatening, and should not be done outside of a hospital, correct?
That's correct.
Did you ever give Michael Jackson propofol?
Never.
Is there any amount of money that you would have that would have convinced you to give him intravenous propofol in his house?
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Doctor. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Walgren. Thank you. Mr. Chernoff, redirect examination.
Dr. Metzger, you told Michael Jackson it was dangerous and should never be given outside of a hospital,
That's correct.
but you didn't have any idea what medicine he was referring to?
Any intravenous anesthetic should not be given in a home.
So what Michael Jackson said was, I want an intravenous anesthetic.
Or intravenous sleep medication.
Well, which one?
In my records, I say, quote, intravenous sleep medication.
But you have independent recollection of him saying anesthetic.
I'm not sure. My notes reflect sleep medication, and anything intravenous was unsafe
Anything intravenous.
as a sleep med.
You didn't broach the subject further. You didn't ask him what kind of medicine or anything of that nature.
I don't recall getting into any more detail.
All right, thank you.
Chernoff, thank you. Recrossed by the people, Mr. Walgren.
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. May Dr. Metzger be excused, Mr. Chernoff?
Yes.
Mr. Walgren?
Subject to recall?
Yes, Your Honor.
Subject to recall?
Yes.
Dr. Metzger, thank you for your testimony
Thank
in the
you.
case. Sir, please don't discuss either your testimony or the facts of the case with any other witness until we finish the trial. You may step down and leave. However, you are to remain on call, and that means you are subject to recall if necessary. Thank you, sir.
I understand.
Thank you. May I see counsel? Use the facilities, ladies and gentlemen. Would any of you like to, perhaps? That figures. Well, take a few moments of your valuable time and think about the facilities anyway. Please remember the admonishments. I think you'll, all things considered, be more comfortable in there than you would be just sitting here for a few minutes. My thanks for your patience, all right? Thank you.